Hey guys, Sneaky Snake here, Brothers in Arms, World of Warships, and today's video is going to feature the Chung Mu, the upcoming Tier 9 Pan-Asian destroyer. I am playing by myself on the PTS server, and it's some domination here on the map Warrior's Path. Now, the purpose of this video is to take a slight look at the actual gameplay in this ship. This one is actually going to be a pretty awesome result, considering that there's only 8 ships. I was on afternoon my time. Of course, I live in Japan, so it's the very early morning hours in the east coast of the United States. So there really wasn't that many people on the PTS at that time, but I was able to get in a couple games in this ship, and I really did enjoy it. So I wanted to show you some gameplay in the ship, but most importantly, go over two things. One, how it stacks up to the Fletcher, which this is a Fletcher-class destroyer. Compare it statistically, and then just talk a little bit about the high-tier Pan-Asian DDs in general and what you can expect out of them and how to get the most out of them. Of course, these ships have not been released yet, and they are still subject to change from a statistical standpoint, but I just wanted to talk to you guys about this really quickly. So, with that being said, we're going to start off here with the statistical overview. The Fletcher and the Chung Mu, from a hit point perspective, have the same amount of hit points fully upgraded at 17,100, and you can see I'm using Survivability Expert on my build, so I have 20,250. That's a nice little chunk of change to have. However, ships like the Tashkent and the Z-46, the Soviet and German destroyer at Tier 9, destroyers, I should say, will have more hit points than you. When it comes to the gun performance, they are almost identical except for two small differences. The Chung Mu has a maximum firing range of 12.1 kilometers, while the Fletcher can shoot out to 12.9. It's a little bit irrelevant considering American DD shells obviously take a very, very long time to fly through the air, and with that being the case, shooting at anything that's not battleship sized at over 10 kilometers is very difficult. So, in all honesty, the Fletcher is kind of the ship that it gets a little bit more screwed here than the Chung Mu because, of course, you're detected from the moment that a ship comes in range of your guns, and the Fletcher will be spotted without the benefit of AFT at about 800 meters further away than the Chung Mu. The Chung Mu also has 97 meters of maximum dispersion, while the Fletcher has 103. It's very negligible, and because these guns shoot extremely fast, the dispersion really isn't all that important, but I digress, it is still 6 meters better. Now, when we take a look here at the torpedo tubes, once again, with the torpedoes, they are excellent performing torpedoes for that matter. The Fletcher comes equipped with 10 of them in 2 quintuple launchers. They have a reload time base of 106 seconds. They do 19,033 damage, have a speed of 66 knots, and a range of 10.5 kilometers. It is the exact same torpedo setup that you have on the Chung Mu. And, of course, since it's a Pan-Asian DD, they are the deep water torpedoes. So they get detected at a shorter range than the Fletchers do. And the Fletcher torpedoes are already in-game pretty stealthy, at least compared to their Japanese counterparts. So you're going to be getting a lot of hits. And with 19,033 maximum damage before you factor in torpedo belts on battleships and cruisers and whatnot, you're going to be doing an exceptional amount of damage to enemy ships, and you're going to see that here coming up when I ambush a King George V. The AA on the ships it's not bad for a destroyer. Of course, there's not really that many DDs in the game that have terrifying AA armaments. Really, the only thing that comes to mind right now is the Grozovoy, and maybe a Kid as well, fully spec'd out for AA. But to have a destroyer that is truly terrifying for an AA build, you do have to sacrifice gun performance and torpedo performance, which is something that, at least with the Fletcher, you really shouldn't be doing. Getting extended AA range is nice for your equipment, but in all honesty, going with things like BFT to increase your reload on your guns and Torpedo Tubes Mod 3 to increase the speed at which your torpedoes get reloaded are more important, in my opinion. However, the AA on the Fletcher is much better because it has access to defensive fire, which is something that the Chung Mu does not have access to. So, how good then is Fletcher AA without defensive AA? I mean, it's alright. It's American AA. You're going to be able to get it to about a 50 or 60 rating when you upgrade it, but in all honesty, it's really not that impressive when you don't have defensive AA going. Taking a look now at the maneuverability on the ships, the Chung Mu is actually a little bit faster, 38 knots compared to 36.5. However, because you have a faster speed, rightfully so, your turning circle is going to decrease a little bit. 620 meters for the Chung Mu, while you only have 560 on the Fletcher. And the rudder shift on the Fletcher stock is also only 3 seconds, while on the Chung Mu it's 3.9. So you increase a knot and a half worth of speed, and conversely, you have a 600 meter larger turning circle and a 0.9 second increase on your rudder shift time. So, while on the Fletcher, you do not need to run the rudder shift module, and you can certainly get away with using the propulsion. On something like a Chung Mu, 3.9 seconds is okay, as Flammo has himself quoted. 4 seconds or less on a destroyer is good enough to use the propulsion mod, but if you really do want to get it down to some very spicy levels of rudder shift times, then using that on the Chung Mu would be pretty ideal. And then lastly, the concealment. 7.38 kilometers on the Fletcher, 7.2 on the Chung Mu, at least from a surface detectability range. The air detectability is the same at 4.05. So what this means is that the Fletcher with a full concealment build will be at 5.8, while the Chung Mu will be at 5.7. So when you compare them statistically, they have the same amount of hit points. They have the same performing guns with slightly different range in favor of the Fletcher. The Fletcher also has better AA because it can use defensive fire. The Chung Mu is faster. The Fletcher has better turning and a better rudder shift, and they both have the same concealment. So what you get is a very powerful Tier 9 destroyer at the end of the day, or for the TLDR. Now, the big thing with these Pan-Asian DDs are, well, I should say two things. One is that the Tiers 8 through 10 Pan-Asian DDs can mount the radar consumable. Now you can see in this replay, I am using the smoke. However, with Pan-Asian DDs, you do not have to use Superintendent to get one extra smoke screen. It gives it to you automatically. However, the smoke screen, while it does have a deployment time of 30 seconds, is only active for 70, while as the American smoke screen is active for almost 2 minutes. So what this means is that, well, these smoke screens on the Pan-Asian DDs are more selfish, in all honesty. They're better off being used on caps by you when you have the appropriate aircraft carrier or friendly teammates being able to spot either by aircraft or other destroyers. So this thing is actually really good as a destroyer escort to go with another American destroyer or another destroyer in that matter, getting on caps, using your smoke screen to hide from enemy ships, and use it to your advantage. Now, of course, the radar on the Chung Mu lasts, I believe, about 15 seconds, might be a little bit more than that, but in either case, the Pan-Asian DD destroyer radar is really only used for scavenging on low health destroyers or letting your teammates get shots on ships that they are currently unable to see. Now really quickly here, I'm going to show you with the torpedo armament. You can see that this King George had to slow down and turn to the left to get away from the Fletcher torpedoes, and it only takes 4 to absolutely destroy him. 3 more torpedoes hit, but it doesn't matter at this point. He is dead. So you can see there, the deep water torps coming in handy. I think it's only an 800 meter detection range on those torpedoes, and it's just literally impossible. If you don't have hydroacoustic up or you don't have a carrier that is able to spot those torpedoes, yeah, you're screwed. And because they hit so hard, it is ridiculous. But back to the radar and the smoke. Using the radar, I think a lot of people are overestimating just how powerful that the radar is actually going to be. Again, in my opinion, it's only going to be really useful for scavenging on low health ships. Now, this engagement you're going to see here as I move on to the B cap is probably going to provide you the best example for when radar would actually be more beneficial. There's no aircraft around. There's nothing around really, at least close to the B cap, that would be able to potentially spot the enemy destroyer that will be coming in. It is another Chung Mu. Now let's pretend here that I only have like 6,000 hit points. Right as I move here into the B cap in a few seconds, the enemy Chung Mu is going to appear straight out in front of me just off my starboard bow, and I'm going to start shooting at this guy. That guy, at least theoretically, would have double the amount of hit points if I only had 6,000. Now, of course, I immediately smoke up and get some shots off, assuming that the guy is going to shoot at me. He goes undetected because he does not shoot. Right now would be a perfect time for him to use his radar. I would be getting detected because I'm in the smoke screen, and he would be able to shoot at me with impunity, and I would not be able to detect him. So that is a situation where the radar would come in handy. Something else to note, why was he not shooting? Because he's dropping his torpedoes. Whenever an American DD is not shooting at you, he's dropping the torps, but I do not have to do anything, because they're going to pass harmlessly underneath my ship. These deep water torpedoes will not, I repeat, will not be able to damage any destroyer. So when you're going onto a cap where there's another American destroyer, well, you're kind of still at the disadvantage. Same thing with a German DD that is aggressive with its use of hydroacoustic. Your torpedoes are, of course, not going to be able to damage him. So unless you have a significant disparity in your hit points like I did in this engagement right here as I pick off my second Chung Mu of the game, you're going to be in a very tough situation. And I'll be honest with you, a very large minority of my destroyer kills on other DDs do come with the use of torpedoes. Getting those cheeky torpedo hits in caps, when you're able to reduce the enemy destroyer's hit points by half at the very least, or outright kill him, is really able to tip the game for you when you're fighting on caps. Not having that ability in these Pan-Asian DDs is... it's not that great, to be honest with you. And why I'm really hesitant to say that these things will be extremely strong cap contesters. Don't get me wrong, having an extra smokescreen is very nice, and at least on the high tier ones, having American gun reload and performance is also really nice as well. But I really cannot underestimate it to you how important it is to be able to have torpedoes to work with when you're attacking caps. So with that being the case, I still think that the American and German DDs will be the epitome of cap contesting still once these destroyers are released. So yeah, that's something that's really important and really big. Anyway, going back to the radar thing, again, it's just not enough time, in all honesty. If it was something like a Missouri radar where it lasted for 25 seconds, then the tables might be turned, but you have to give up smoke to be able to use it, which in some situations where there's a really good enemy carrier player, or the enemy destroyers are really good at scouting, it's just difficult, because when you get into a situation where you're coming head on, like I did in that engagement on B, let's say I did not have smoke and I had radar, well, the radar would have been completely useless to me right there, and that guy would have been able to shoot at me, and if he was smart, would have been able to just absolutely wreck me if he had smoke. And I'm not necessarily a fan of using the radar on it. I think using the smokescreen, considering you get an extra one for free without the use of Superintendent, will allow you to, one, spec into other captain skills that aren't Superintendent, so you can use those 3 captain's points elsewhere. And it just makes for a better build, in my opinion. So, yeah, that's all I really have to say about that. However, in this situation right here, I am using the smokescreen perfectly. This Chung Mu is getting spotted by the friendly Fletcher that is on Echo 7 on the eastern part of the B cap. So all I have to do is smoke up in front of him, and I'm good to go. Now, if he did have radar, he would be able to spot me at this point, but you can see that I've already done quite a substantial amount of damage to him, and I was able to put myself in a completely unfair fight. This guy was not able to do anything about it, and now as he finally decides to smoke up, he is too worse for the wear, and I pick up my 3rd Chung Mu kill of the game here in this replay. I've already picked up 4 kills out of the 8 possible, and I've almost done 100,000 points of damage. Now, going actually into the replay here, if you've noticed, I've killed all 3 of the Chung Mus. And in all 3 engagements, I was able to make it unfair fights with the use of my smokescreen. The first one, I was able to deal damage to the guy as he was running away without him being able to deal any in return. And then since I knew that his torpedoes would not be able to touch me, I decided to charge forward, and when he had 6,000 hit points, I was able to finish him off. On the second one, once again, a year and a half playing World of Warships, just kicking in, I immediately smoke up, was able to deal some damage to him as he mistakenly dropped his torpedoes. And I'm sure you'll run into a couple people that will not realize that. And then on that 3rd engagement, once again, I was able to take advantage of the newish spotting mechanics, set up shop in my smokescreen, and deal damage to that guy without him being able to deal any in return. And I still have 10,000 of my hit points left, which is, in all honesty, for the mid to late game, a lot of hit points to carry around with a destroyer. Now, at this point, you're going to see here these torpedoes are going to be able to get reasonably close to the Freddy over here. You can see that he's starting to turn to the left right now. I am assuming that his hydroacoustic is going, but it looks like one of these torpedoes is going to be able to deal some damage to him, and he already used his damage control. Another very poor usage of the repair, and now he is going to be flooding for a long time. So at this point, I decided to use my last smokescreen. And what I'm going to do is creep ahead at half speed enough to spot him very briefly before the smoke puff goes, so I'm able to shoot at him while I'm crawling forward on the move, and I keep going in and out of detection. So for him, it would be a very difficult shot to make. Excuse me. Now, at this point, I'm going to switch my focus to the Edinburgh, but you can see my torpedoes are already ready to go. And because I have Torpedo Tubes Mod 3, and also I believe in this game, actually, no. My captain skill in this game, I only had a 15-point captain. I did not put on Torpedo Reload Armament Expertise. Without that, the reload is still 1 minute and 12. And I think I also had Adrenaline Rush on this guy kicking in as well. So, yeah, these torpedoes are fantastic. And being able to launch them very, very quickly and with so much damage, I mean, we all know how good Fletcher torps are, and the fact that these things are able to deal even more damage to cruisers and battleships is invaluable. So, with all of that I've talked about, how should you play these destroyers? You should still get on caps. They're still American destroyers at heart. However, when you're dealing with torpedoes, you really do want to excuse me, that was very terrible English. You really do want to go and try to harass the enemy battleships and the cruisers with your torpedoes if you can, because not all cruisers, not all battleships have access to hydroacoustic, and being able to get within 800 meters of the ship before the torps are spotted it's ridiculous. You're able to deal so much damage to them if your torpedo salvo is on point. And again, I think divisioning up with another American DD that actually is able to use its torpedoes to hit enemy DDs, or a German destroyer that has hydroacoustic, and then if you're a fan of three-man divs, throwing in a cruiser that has radar, be it Soviet or American, I really think that that's going to be a very powerful division. The Chung Mu and the American DDs and the Pan-Asian destroyers, for that matter, to be able to have the extra smokescreen, the American and or German destroyer to be able to use the torps to hit enemy DDs and provide hydroacoustic and defensive AA, and then of course the radar cruiser to be able to help you guys out in close quarters combat. And also one other thing to note, this was only my second game in this ship, and I felt really, really comfortable in it. Now, something really quickly here, what I'm doing is I'm stopping my shooting at the Freddy. I already got one fire burning on him, and he is going to die, so now I turn completely bow into him, so I'm least likely to take hits from his secondaries, and hopefully I should be able to go undetected before his guns are reloaded. There we go, I finally go undetected. A couple of seconds later, his guns shoot. I burn him down. Will I die here? No, the shells go just past me. I'm up to 192,000 points of damage. I'd already have Confederate. I'd already have high caliber. I probably would have milked out a liquidator on that guy as well. And of course, since I have 5 kills, I also have the Kraken as well. So this has been a fantastic replay. I know I haven't really commentated on the replay, but when I was talking with Puddin how I wanted to do this video, I really wanted to focus on the stats compared to the Fletcher, and also how these things should play and how you should play them as well. So finally, the last thing here is the replay is coming to a close. What's better, the Chung Mu or the Fletcher? In my opinion, it's still the Fletcher. The Fletcher, again, has defensive AA, and it has torpedoes that are able to hit enemy destroyers. And it also has the same reload on the torpedoes as well, even though the Chung Mu torpedoes are theoretically more dangerous to deal with because of the better detection, and due to the same hit points, the same gun performance, better AA, and better maneuverability. The Fletcher is still, in my opinion, the king of the Tier 9 destroyers, but the radar on the Chung Mu can work out in very specific situations, but I don't think those situations are, often enough to warrant its usage. But hey, I'm just here giving you my opinion, and with that being said, I hope you enjoyed this replay in the Chung Mu on Warrior's Path. Alrighty guys, taking a look now at the post-battle results, 559,000 credits received and about 9,000 total EXP. I dealt 192,000 points of damage off of 196 shell hits and 5 torpedoes. I sank 5 enemy ships, set 5 fires, had 1 solo base cap, and 1 assisted base capture. Taking a look at the team score, 2,984 base EXP, almost the marvelous 3K base EXP wins that everybody loves to get. And yeah, this was just a straight up carry. In a game that had a carrier and only had 8 ships, I certainly had my presence felt. Taking a look now at the detailed report, 64,000 damage dealt with the main battery. That's a pretty healthy amount, to be honest with you. 54,000 damage dealt with the torpedoes that I launched, and 73,000 damage dealt with the fires and the flooding that I was able to cause. 34 with the fires and 38 with the flooding. I also had 548,000 potential damage, which is okay, but the very nice total of 98 out of the 180 capture points for my team. And yeah, this was a fantastic replay in this ship, and one that, well, it kind of felt natural to me. I really enjoyed the Fletcher. I did extremely well in that ship. And if you're able to deal with not being able to torpedo enemy destroyers, and you have to think a little bit more about your positioning and who you're going up against in the caps, then I think the Chung Mu is going to be a fantastic destroyer. Again, at the end of the day, this thing still is a Fletcher hull. And lastly, the Gleaves-class destroyer, the Haisen Yang, and then at Tier 10, I think it's the Haisiang Yang or something like that. They're both very similar pronunciation-wise, are based off of, again, the Gleaves-class, and then the Allen M. Sumner-class, which is similar to a Gearing, except in real life it had less range. Those destroyers will play very similarly to the Benson and the Gearing, respectively, at Tiers 8 and 10. So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this replay. Please comment below what you think about the Pan-Asian DDs, whether you agree or disagree with my assumptions and my noticings about them and what I think, and let's have a nice discussion about it below. And also, again, please consider giving the video a like and possibly subscribing to the channel. All of it is very much appreciated. So with that being said, the Sneaky Snake here for Brothers in Arms World of Warships signing off. Guys and gals, as always, have a great day.